Garden Basics with Farmer Fred is brought to you by Smart Pots, the original lightweight, long-lasting fabric plant container. It's made in the USA. Visit smartpots.com/Fred for more information and a special discount. That's smartpots.com/Fred. Welcome to the Garden Basics with Farmer Fred podcast. If you're just a beginning gardener or you want good gardening information, well, you've come to the right spot. Garden experts agree. If you are an inexperienced gardener or maybe a first-time gardener, your best confidence-building step is to plant easy-to-grow vegetables, flowers, and fruit to start off. For those taking their first steps into growing fruit, especially those with a limited space, maybe just a patio area, it's hard to beat container-grown blueberries. Give them some basic needs, and you're going to have fresh, nutritious blueberries for years and years. So how do you start? What are the best varieties to grow? What are their needs for water, fertilizers, and soil? That's what we're going to delve into today on Garden Basics. We're podcasting from Barking Dog Studios here in the beautiful Abutilon Jungle in suburban Purgatory. It's the Garden Basics with Farmer Fred podcast, and we're brought to you today by Smart Pots and Dave Wilson Nursery. Let's go. We are here at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center on a workshop day in January. It's not raining, it's cloudy, it's threatening rain, but it's still a beautiful day, and we are enjoying the winter interest, if you will, here in the blueberry patch of the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center. Blueberries, a great, tasty, small berry to grow. I have probably a cup of blueberries every morning with my breakfast, and it's very healthy for you, and blueberries in the ground or in containers are a great way to go. We are talking with Master Gardener Ann Moore. And Ann, let's talk about all the different varieties you have here. Now, we're in USDA Zone 9, where Southern High Bush blueberries are recommended. So why don't we start on one end and work our way back and talk about each of these varieties of blueberries to grow. Now, usually the harvest time for these is here in USDA Zone 9 is probably, May and June?
Starting in May, and we've actually gone into July last year.
All right. Well, the first one we come to is one of my favorite early and mid-season blueberries. That's a Southern High Bush. I guess first of all, we better explain the difference between Southern High Bush and Northern High Bush. Southern High Bush is which is the easiest to grow here. Northern High Bush, I guess, are the ones you would find in Michigan or Washington or back east.
Correct. Right. And they need a little bit more chill hours usually than the Southern High Bush.
Maybe not 100-degree temperatures.
Yeah. Though you'll see we've had success with some Northern High Bush, and I can tell you which ones those are.
All right. Okay. So stay tuned for that. But this first one is one of my favorites that I have had in my garden for 25 years or so, and that's Jubilee.
Correct. Now, this is just a 1-year-old plant, so we don't have a lot of experience with it yet, but it's real common in the nursery, and it's really recommended for our area to do very well.
One of the criteria, if you start growing blueberries, you'll realize that one of the criteria is you really want to choose a blueberry variety that produces pretty good-sized blueberries because they're a lot easier to pick than the really small ones. Jubilee's pretty good size. Next up on the list here in the blueberry section at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center is the Star Blueberry. Tell us about the Star.
It's been here quite a while and done very well. It fruits early in the season, so we'll see this starting in May. And it is a Southern High Bush. It does very well, very tasty, and I think it has a good-sized berry.
Also, here in USDA Zone 9, we should point out that not all blueberries lose their leaves. Some leaves persist. And the star blueberry has these now reddish leaves clinging to the plant. A lot of winter interest there.
Yeah, they're really pretty.
So that's one thing to consider, too, about the blueberries is, does it lose its leaf or not? And if it doesn't, it's something to look at.
Correct.
All right, moving down the list here. Another one of my favorites is Sunshine Blue that you have here. Oh, look at all the buds on it. Here it is January, and it's got buds, and yet it is a mid-season variety.
Yeah, now this is also a relatively young plant. We planted this, it's probably just coming into its third year. So we're expecting to start to see a good amount of berries on here. We've just been kind of nurturing it and even taking the berries off till now to just help it get stabilized. And it's a beautiful green and really lush looking. And we're going to prune it, but we probably won't prune it hardly at all since it's so young. Just take out next month we'll do this, take out the old branches or dying branches, but as you can see, it's just really beautiful. I don't think there's much that we need to do to it.
Let's talk a little bit about pruning blueberries. What you want to do, as you suggest, is remove the old wood. Usually it's the 3-year-old wood or greater of age because they get less productive as they get older.
Absolutely. And if you just want to keep encouraging new growth, and that's where the life is in the plant. Your plant will live a lot longer if most of the plant is young wood versus older wood as well.
And when you take out an old branch, you take it down to ground level, don't you?
Absolutely. And then you start seeing the structure of the plant. That really helps you figure out if you need to make any more pruning cuts or not.
Yeah, and that is best done probably in wintertime?
Yeah, we hope to prune next month if it's not too rainy and crazy, but in the next month or two is when we should be doing it. And you can see there's already buds on these plants, so we want to cut it now, and so we're not cutting off all those future berries.
And moving on, here is another evergreen blueberry, southern highbush variety called Abundance. I have had no experience growing Abundance. Tell us about that.
Well, we've had this plant for a long time, and it truly is abundant. It's putting up lots of new plants. Actually, in past years, we've lost some plants. We've actually been able to take some new babies from this plant and put them and regrow them. So it's very abundant. It's got lots and lots of berries, good size, really tasty. But I do have to say, I think this is a hard one to find. Mm-hmm. A few of our plants here we've gotten from real special sources, and we really can't help you find them. You'd have to go online if you're really serious about it. This is actually I think this is probably 3 plants here right now that we've just allowed to grow, and we could dig them up and plant them somewhere else and they would do fine. These actually have come up from the root.
What time of year would you do that?
I think either late fall or early spring is when you want to do stuff like that.
Okay, so you dig out what you can see as a new plant coming up and just sever the roots, leave some roots on, but just enough to get it out of the ground and then put it in a new home.
Absolutely. Our experience is blueberries are really forgiving plants. I mean, they can take a lot of pruning. They come back a lot of times after a hard summer. So they're really hardy plants.
Let's talk about the home for a blueberry. They like acid soil.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the most important things when you're growing blueberries. I think it's one thing that people sort of don't like to do, but they need acidic soil pH between 4.5 and 5.5, and that pH is what allows them to actually absorb iron from the ground, which is what they need to produce really great berries. So if you're planting in the ground, the best way to do that, I wasn't around when we planted all these plants that are in the ground, but you actually need to go a few months ahead of time and actually mix in, there's a whole formula that we have on our website, mix in some additives of soil, let it break down so that you can create more of an acidic environment. And then every year after that, we're always measuring the pH of all of our soil and adding soil sulfur to constantly manage the pH of the soil, because our soil in Sacramento tends to be around 7 and they need 4.5 to 5.5. Now I'd add, when we're planting in barrels, it's a whole lot easier because then you can just buy a big bag of azalea soil, which is made for acidic plants, and plant in that. Or we have a recipe on our website of what you can mix together of different kinds of soils and soil additives to make the soil that they like.
You have to be patient with soil sulfur when you add it because it takes a couple of months for it to actually start lowering the pH.
Yes, yeah. And we actually we're going to measure in March. We do it in March of every year. Note that down, and we'll add half of the soil sulfur in March and then another half in the fall. So we're kind of pacing ourselves because it's a slow release additive, and we just really want to make sure you have a steady
You mentioned the soil mix recipe if you're growing it in containers, and big containers like cattle watering troughs, for example, with holes in the bottom are a great way to go for growing a plant like a blueberry to get it up to its eventual height of 4 feet, 5 feet or more, but usually they're around 3, 4, 5 feet. But that mix, as I recall, and it's the mix I use on my blueberries, would be 1/3 of that azalea soil mix, 1/3 pathway bark, and 1/3 of an acidic soil amendment like peat moss, for example. Just make sure it's all thoroughly wetted before you use it. That's a good combination to use. The other thing, too, about growing blueberries in containers, does it need to be revitalized every few years? Should you empty that container out and put in fresh soil?
Well, we haven't had our barrels that long, so we're certainly not at that stage. But I do have barrels at home that I've had for 7 or 8 years, and they're doing fine. I do really pay attention to how much I fertilize them, because I think over time, when you're in a container, the plant materials get kind of leached out. So you might think over time of changing your fertilizing regimen and maybe fertilizing more often with a mixture of kelp and fish emulsion or something like that, something really diluted, but just to help keep replenishing that soil.
You mentioned my favorite fertilizer formula there of fish emulsion and kelp meal for a full array of macro and micronutrients, but in little doses, unlike a lot of commercial products. In fact, commercial products, I think some of your favorite blueberry growers may shy away from synthetic fertilizers just because of the salts in them, and they prefer organic fertilizers for growing blueberries.
Yeah, we do that as well here.
All right, now this next one in the row of blueberries here at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center is a northern high bush. And again, the northern high bush blueberry plant is a favorite in cooler climates like Washington, Michigan, and back east. Tell us about northern high bush and the Duke blueberry.
Well, this plant is really, really vigorous. We prune it really severely every year. And if you could see this plant right now, it just has so many stems. It's just got it's more dense growth than any of our other plants. It has a really nice medium-sized light blue berry, and it does well every year, and it's no leaves. It's completely naked, but you can see lots of buds. I think we're going to have a really good year here. And it's an early producer. Yep. What time of year do you usually harvest this? This is an early season, so like I said, we usually start in May. Every year is a little bit different depending on the weather. We were a little bit late last year because we had the sun didn't come to us as soon last year, but by mid-May, we were usually seeing berries. What's nice here at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center is there's information about each of the varieties of plants they're growing here, and usually a picture of them, too, when they're in full production. And this picture and description of the Duke blueberry, those look like good-sized blueberries. Yeah, and they're really good. We're a favorite. Now, here's one. And it's an interesting variety. It's called pink lemonade blueberry, but it's not necessarily a southern high bush, not necessarily a northern high bush. It's something in between. Yeah, it's a hybrid of a variety called rabbit eye. It's the only mixed with a southern high bush. And it's a really interesting plant. This was new to us. This is just coming into its third year. We haven't had many berries yet, but I think we will this year. It's pink. People just love them because they're really beautiful. I'm not sure that they're as tasty as some of the others, but I think it's just really an interesting plant that you see a lot in the nursery. So we just wanted to grow it so we can have an example. The picture on the label of the berry itself, it almost looks like a pyracantha berry or a toyon berry, and that would take little fingers to pick. Yeah, maybe you're right. And actually, the plant was taken by one of our members, and that's from her yard, so you can see she's getting a good harvest there. Well, we knew the weather was going to change today here in January at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center, and it's starting to drip, so we'll finish up quickly here with the blueberries. Here's another northern high bush one called Northland. Tell us about Northland. Once again, this is doing really well. It's a plant we've had quite a long time. You can see it's got a lot of growth on it. It has had a little bit of stem blight in the past, but we were able to just prune it out, and it seems to be coming back just fine. It does really really well, has a really nice berry on it. It's a mid-season berry, so it's a little bit later, probably June-ish before it starts. We start to get a good harvest, but it's been here a long time, and we're really happy with it.
All right. And finally, a southern high bush variety here on the end. Another variety that I grow year after year called Sharp Blue.
Right. Now, this is, once again, just coming into its third year, but look at how lush it is. It's got lots of green leaves and lots of blossoms already on it. It's one that does really great in our area. We expect it to become ripe in probably in May, in early season, and we chose this because it's really known to do really well in our area. It's something that's readily available to the public, and so we just really want to be able to demonstrate that here.
And I will agree with what it says on the sign here. Produces large berries with good color and excellent flavor. Sharp Blue is probably one of my all-time favorites, too. You know, as we were walking through this row of blueberries here, it just so happens there's another row of blueberries behind us. Well, let's talk about these. All right, I forgot. Yeah, Georgia Gem, that's a southern hybrid.
Yeah, this is really a favorite. They're not the biggest berries in the world, but in past, when we've had tasting tests, this has often been a favorite. The public really likes this berry. It's an early season berry. We've had quite a long time, and it's done well, survived some serious sun issues and just popped back and seems to be doing well. It is a plant that's sort of hard to find. You'd have to really search for it, but we're really happy with it.
The Georgia Gem Blueberry.
Yeah.
And next to it is another tried and true variety here in USDA Zone 9, the Southern High Bush, the Misty.
Yeah, this is one we've had for a while. I think it's actually had some serious challenges in the past because it was planted in an area that wasn't, we discovered wasn't getting water as much as it needs. But look, it looks beautiful. It's just, like I said, it's a really resilient plant, and it's looking really beautiful with lots of leaves, and we see some blossoms already. It's an early season plant and has really great berries. It's one of those that does really well here and is really easy to get a hold of.
All right. And I think this is the last blueberry.
Yeah.
It's the Ozark Blue.
Once again, this is an unusual one, but people really like the flavor. They're really tasty, and so it's worth, if you want to do something out of the norm, it's worth finding it, but you'll have to search. This is a mid-season plant, so it's a little bit later in the season, but prolific, and we've been very happy with it. We've had it quite a long time.
Yeah, we should point out that blueberry plants here in California are one of the first fruit varieties to hit the nurseries, usually in late December and January. As you go to colder climates, they'll start appearing in your nurseries a little bit later in the year, but shop early for best selection.
Yeah, absolutely. They're there now, and they do sell out sometimes.
Wow, we've learned a lot about blueberries today from Ann Moore, Master Gardener here in Sacramento County. We're at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center, where now the rain is getting serious. Ann, thank you for braving this with me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
For over a year now, I've been making some of the best compost I've ever had in a Smart Pot compost sack. The end result is a beautiful compost called leaf mold, and it's made from fallen oak leaves. And the best part of all, it's easy. With the Smart Pot compost sack, all I'm doing is running over those fallen oak leaves with a mulching mower and then loading those shredded leaves into the 100-gallon Smart Pot compost sack. It's a fabric bag from the folks at Smart Pots that's lightweight yet extremely durable and lasts for years. It can hold 12 cubic feet of pure compost. This rugged fabric is entirely porous, containing many micropores that allows for air circulation and drainage. It has a fitted cover, too. It's a flexible plastic top that's designed to increase heat and help manage moisture in the mix, accelerating the compost process. And all you have to do in the meantime is wait. Load the Smart Pot compost sack in the fall, and the following year you've got some truly great compost to add to your garden bed. It's really gardener's gold. It's easy to start a compost pile with the Smart Pot compost sack. Open the sack, put it on level ground, and start adding your compostable materials like grass clippings, vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, and more, like oak leaves. And you can also add straw or shredded paper. Next, place the optional cover over the sack. That's all there is to it. And if you want even faster results, get a second Smart Pot compost sack and shovel the contents of one into the other, adding a bit of organic fertilizer that has nitrogen. The more often you do that, the quicker you're going to get a finished compost. Smart Pots, they're available at independent garden centers and select Ace and True Value hardware stores nationwide. You can find the location nearest you at their website, smartpots.com/Fred. And when you visit their website at smartpots.com/Fred, you can buy the Smart Pots online. Just visit smartpots.com/Fred, and don't forget that /Fred part, because on that page are details about how, for a limited time, you can get 10% off your Smart Pot order by using the coupon code FRED, F-R-E-D, at checkout. It's from the Smart Pot store. Visit smartpots.com/Fred for more information about the complete line of Smart Pot's lightweight, colorful, award-winning fabric containers and their latest, the compost sack. It's Smart Pots, the original award-winning fabric planter. Go to smartpots.com/Fred. Blueberries are very forgiving plants, including how you prune them. And as I'm fond of saying, if it works for you, fine, but keep an open mind. Here to expand your mind about pruning, selecting, and planting blueberries are Tom Spellman and Phil Purcell from Dave Wilson Nursery. This is from one of their YouTube chats. One of the easiest plants for beginning gardeners to grow are blueberries. But there's a lot of conflicting advice out there. Tom Spellman works with Dave Wilson Nursery. He and Phil Purcell got together and did a little talk about when to prune blueberries and how to plant them and how to take care of them. One of the things Tom mentioned I didn't know, you should prune your blueberries after harvest in the summertime, not in winter. Tom will explain.
Tom Spellman, Dave Wilson Nursery. It's second week of August up here in the Central Valley, and we're out evaluating our new crop of berry plants coming on for this fall. We'll be shipping these in late October, November, early December. This is Sunshine Blue Blueberry. Look how nice that plant is. That's just absolutely a beautiful finished product. But we're going to pinch these one more time. We're going to cut them down about 6 inches or so and put one more nice flush of growth on them. All that growth that they finish off with this fall, that's going to be production wood for this next season. That's what's going to bloom in February and March and April and produce berries in May, June, and July. So blueberries are kind of an anomaly in the fruit world. If you prune blueberries in the wintertime, every cut you make, you're pruning out fruiting wood. So you want to do all of your pruning on blueberries in the summer after the end of the crop season. So when the plants are done fruiting in July or early August, that's when you want to do your shaping. Let that next flush of growth come out, and that's what's going to be production wood for the next year. So no winter pruning on blueberries. So this is another one of our unique blueberry varieties. We're growing about a dozen or so different varieties in our Farmers Market Favorite program, all in this 4x9 inch liner pot. So these are 1-year plants. They're ready to be lined out. They're going to be productive their first year in a container. This is a variety called Pink Lemonade. So as opposed to a blue blueberry, this is a pink blueberry. It's a little more acidic, it's a little more tangy in flavor, and they mix this a lot with other blue flesh varieties to be used in desserts. The dessert chefs love this variety. This, on top of a cheesecake with a couple of blueberries, will make about a $20 dessert.
So many young people now are getting into gardening, but it's a little overwhelmed. What we think is the best entry-level fruit to get into, especially if you have a small patio, is getting into blueberries or getting into small bush plants and trialing them there. And from there, go ahead and expanding. So blueberries, perfect. You can plant 3 in a wine barrel. You can plant 1 in a nice decorative container, and it's an easy way for someone new to gardening to really experience and be successful with with edibles. What the bushel and berry adds into this mix is, for example, this right here is the Baby Cakes blackberry. When everyone thinks blackberries along the roadside, they're thinking, the sprawling vines and the thorns. This is a thornless bush blackberry that's made for containers. It's going to get covered with fruit, really easy to maintain. It doesn't get big. You just keep it trimmed in a nice little bush. Its counterpart is known as raspberry shortcake. It is a raspberry that's a bush raspberry as opposed to cane. Perfect for container gardening, and you'll get nice, good fruit off of it. So, if you're not really sure about, dedicating a lot of room, start with the bushel and berry line and go ahead and put them in pots. So speaking of pots, right? What do you think about soil, especially blueberries? Everyone's a little freaked out on what to do, but we have a simple recipe.
There's two things that are essential to proper blueberry care. Number one, fast drainage.
Okay.
You don't want any water to sit in that pot. You want it all to drain out. And an acidic soil condition.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you don't have a high pH. You don't want a pH any more than about 6.5 max.
Okay.
So if you used a mixture of, say, a good sandy potting soil, about one third peat moss, a coarse grind peat moss,
okay,
and about 1/3 pathway or walk-on bark, and mix those all three together, that's going to give you the perfect mix for blueberries or for most container plants in general. So these little bushel and berry varieties would do great, right, in that same mix.
And it sounds a little daunting, but the way I do it at home, I get a wheelbarrow, get a bag of nice organic potting soil, set that there, bag of peat moss, and a bag of pathway bark, or even orchid bark, coarser orchid bark. You get this container, scoop one, scoop the other, mix it up, you're ready to go.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
so.
It really is. It's not complicated at all, and it makes the perfect mix. There are almost equivalent mixes that you can buy pre-mixed or pre-bagged, but I really like being able to mix those three elements together and come up with that finished product.
Right. So what we're saying is, if you're new to gardening, a little intimidated, don't be. Great starter plants, blueberries. If you want to expand and maybe get a blackberry in your patio or a raspberry in your patio, look into the bushel and berry line of plants. What's nice about ours is in little 4-inch containers, right? So they're inexpensive at your garden center. Put it in a nice pickle jar, decorative pot, use the planting mix, and you're going to have fruit throughout the summer. So, hopefully this kind of helps people who are a little intimidated understand it's simple. And gardening really is simple.
And so rewarding. I mean, we were picking blueberries this year beginning about maybe March 15th, and we picked all the way up until last week, first week in August.
Yep. So just go to our harvest chart, pick a early, mid, late season blueberry, and you're set.
And even though all those blueberry varieties are listed as being self-fruitful, by planting 3 individual varieties together
just helps
in one clump, you get so much more production. Yeah. Probably 10 times the amount of production,
right,
by having those cross-pollinators built in.
Yep. So any other questions, just go on to davewilson.com and, just look at the varieties and make the choice. Go down to your independent garden center and pick them out. And
we're here for you. We want your gardening experience to be successful. We want you to eat plenty of fresh fruit, and that's why we're providing these high-quality plants and all this information on our website.
That again from Dave Wilson Nursery, Tom Spellman and Phil Purcell talking berries. And for more information, do check out their website, davewilson.com. You know who really likes fresh-picked blueberries besides gardeners? Birds, squirrels, rats, even your pet dog. So how can you protect those ripening blueberries from those marauders? Well, we found one good solution at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center in Fair Oaks, California. We're talking with Master Gardener Shenna Mealy. And Shenna, this is quite the system you have here. You have your blueberries spaced here, about 3 to 4 feet apart?
Yes.
And when people come here to the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center and see the blueberries, they're going to be amazed at your netting system here. Talk about this netting system. It's a system anybody could put in at home.
Right. It's very simple. If you don't net your blueberries, the birds will eat them before you get to. Blueberries turn blue about a week before they're actually ripe, but as soon as they turn blue, the birds will eat them gone. So if you want to protect them and have some yummy ones left for yourself, you need to net them. What we have done is we have PVC pipe that's about 4 or 5 feet tall with a T at the top. And then that PVC pipe is actually over a piece of rebar. The rebar is in the ground. It's about a 4-foot piece of rebar. We poke in the ground about 18 inches. The PVC pipe goes over that. A string has gone around through the PVC pipe tees.
At the top.
At the top, yes. And then the netting is over that. So that it's really just a support for the netting.
Yeah, that string, we should point out, is actually like a white nylon rope.
Right. And it could be anything. It could be yellow. It could, whatever. This year we actually painted our PVC pipe green, so it's a little less obtrusive, and it actually looks really fabulous.
And it's half-inch PVC pipe, too.
Yes.
So that's very inexpensive.
Very, and easy to do, something that anybody can do with a little, saw and a spray paint if you want. Then the netting that we can buy locally is not as wide, and it's kind of stiff and not as easy to work with. So we have netting that we found. Can I say where we get it from?
Sure, oh yeah.
It's actually Wilson Orchard and Vineyard Supply, might be saying that backwards, has netting available. The netting that they have currently available is black, but it's also soft. It's wonderful to work with. It comes in 50-foot wide amounts, so you can have a big spanse, and they will cut it to size. So that's the best resource we've found around here to get your netting, and they do mail order. So then the other part that's essential is you have to pin the netting down to the ground, because those sneaky birds will actually climb under the netting, eat your berries, break your leaves, trying to fly out. They won't be able to fly out, and then they'll just kill themselves and die. So we don't want that to happen, and consequently we have used hose. You can use anything, actually, PVC pipe, old wood, something to secure the base of the netting around the entire side. We pin that down with irrigation clamps, and that keeps it so that the birds cannot get in.
So are these the longer bobby pins, about the 6-inch or 8-inch?
Yes. Yep. They're like 1 inch wide enough to go over a big hose, and about 6 inches long.
Yeah, so basically you just have like a 100-foot garden hose along the base of the perimeter, and then pinned it down, and that holds the netting in place so squirrels or dogs or whatever and birds can't get underneath it to get the berries. My question is, how do you get in?
You have to lift it up. You have to unpin it. You have to lift up the netting from under the hose. The netting then just kind of flops up over the supports, and you pick underneath there and then put it back down.
What section opens up? How wide a section do you have open up?
It depends on how many berries are. I mean, you can open up, even the whole side if you want to can be opened up. We usually open up maybe, 6 or 10 feet at a time. Just depending on how many berries are ripening, which bushes need attention at that time.
Well, Shanna, I've learned a lot here. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Want to leave us a garden question? You'll find a link at gardenbasics.net. Also, when you click on any episode at gardenbasics.net, you're going to find a link to SpeakPipe. You'll find it in the show notes. And when you bring up SpeakPipe on your computer or smartphone, you can leave us an audio question without making a phone call. Or you can go to SpeakPipe directly. That's speakpipe.com/gardenbasics. You want to call or text us? We have that number posted at gardenbasics.net. It's 916-292-8964, 916-292-8964. Email? Sure, we like email. Send it along with your pictures to fred@farmerfred.com. Or again, go to gardenbasics.net and get that link. And if you send us a question, be sure to tell us where you're gardening, because all gardening is local. Find it all at gardenbasics.net. Garden Basics with Farmer Fred comes out every Tuesday and Friday, and it's brought to you by Smart Pots and Dave Wilson Nursery. Garden Basics, it's available wherever podcasts are handed out. For more information about the podcast, visit our website, gardenbasics.net, and that's where you can find out about the free Garden Basics newsletter, Beyond the Basics. And thank you so much for listening.